Sup, it's Seal. Welcome to the second episode of my Devlog series, my new indie game with Surviral. I started work on Sunday, which involved converting the grass tiles back to normal tiles instead of the rule tiles that they were before. I started to realise that the current methods of creating level chunks would be inefficient given the scope of the game. As such, I will probably start work on a level editor. This removes the need of colours as a tile indicator. Speaking of tile indicators, I fixed the bug of the build marker being visible on launch. On top of that, I've created a method of placing down different objects. At the moment, you can only place down two different orientations of fence. A feature that I forgot to mention in the last video is a day-night cycle. This is done by having a translucent dark sprite cover the screen. When it becomes night, the alpha channels in the sprite increase. The tiles being off the grid have been fixed by setting the Unity tile set grid to have an anchor of 0 pixels horizontally and 0 pixels vertically. This has officially sorted the off-grid issues. Over Monday and Tuesday, I worked on using Tile to create the maps for the game. I spent a long time trying to upgrade my image to level software to allow it to convert maps for me. However, after 2 days, I stumbled across Super Tile to Unity and proceeded to grind a cold shower. 2 days were wasted for no reason, and to top it all off, a map that I created and tiled became corrupt due to my incompetence, so that's now lost to the void. As such, for the next few days I'm hoping to work on creating a basic level that allows me to test out the features. Just before I went to bed, I created a basic island and tiled. It has animated water and some rule tiles to create the grass. I'm not going to be using the chunk system anymore as it was too time consuming and wasn't worth it. On Wednesday, the first thing I did was work on collisions. After a few minutes I was able to get the player colliding with the water tiles. After that I decided the basic main menu that I threw together quickly when I first started the project could do with an overhaul. As such, I created a button texture, filled the main menu with buttons, and made those buttons uninteractable. After creating a main menu handler and an options handler and chucking some code onto it, I can now interact with the buttons on the main menu. However, when I went to build and run the game, I had a few issues. For some reason, the game didn't run after I built it. When I went to run it manually, it ran fine. So, later on, I ended up doing a minor fix to the build settings and ran it again. Unfortunately, Unity didn't let me build the game this time. My theory at the time was that Unity was struggling to load the game after it was built, and as such, was still technically using the executable file that does run the game. This meant I was unable to replace or edit the file. After deleting the builds folder and rebuilding the project, I found that it didn't fix the issue. It gave me an error about not being able to move it from a staging area. I went to said area and found that I could run it from there. After deleting the staging area and rebuild it, I still had the same issue. After looking at Google, I found out it was an issue with Avast. Avast saw the executable as a virus and placed it into its virus chest. After adding it as an exception, the game built perfectly fine. After running the game, then going back to actually allow the buttons to run the scripts, I can now play the game and exit it. After creating a few extra fences that could be placed by the player, I wanted to make the level look more appealing. As such, I started work on a small settlement. After creating the settlement and starting to set up some of its collisions, I decided to start work on a simple dialogue system. I wanted to create a sign that the player could walk up to and then start a conversation by pressing E. When creating this, I also implemented a game state manager so the player couldn't move around while they were talking with another entity or reading the sign. After getting the sign to work and realising that I typed the wrong key for the little prompt, I had a working dialogue system in the game. Next, I created another sign just to be sure that all signs didn't share the same text for some odd reason. Thankfully, they didn't. After placing down a test actor to see how much I could put in the dialogue box, I could call the dialogue box complete for now. Later down the line, I want to add multiple lines of speech, random texts, choices, sounds, and maybe letter by letter typing like some JRPGs. At this point, I decided I should probably call it quits for the day and headed to bed. On Thursday, I woke up and started work on the options menu. First, however, I wanted to add a bit of background blurring, so I went online to see how other people had done it. Found out the best way to do it was with a Unity shader. I've never actually created a shader for Unity before. Thankfully, I found this source code on the Unity forums that does exactly what I needed, and after creating a material and a panel, I got this end result. You'll find a link to the forum post in the description. I won't be using this shader in the final build, but it gives me something to look at and to learn from. After adding this blur effect, I sat down to action a few things that I'd written down throughout the week. First was changing the executable logo. Next, I added my logo to the splash screen. Finally, I changed the key bindings, so to scroll through the buildable objects, you actually use the scroll wheel now. After all that, I decided it was time to work on the options menu. I sat down for a bit to figure out what I want it to look like, and I sketched it on paper. All I had to do then was try and recreate it in Unity, and this is the final product. As you can see, not everything is there, and just about everything is without a script at the moment, so that's something that I'll have to work on next week. While I'm working on the option and main menu, I decided to add a pause menu, so you can exit back to the main menu at any time. After completing that, I felt like it was enough for Thursday, and by extension, the week. Friday is video editing day. Looking through the footage, you can really see how the game has changed. No longer can you see chunk lines, but instead a little settlement. There's now a proper main menu and pause menu, dialogue. This is already starting to look much more like a real game. However, there's still so much more that needs to be done. So this is going to be going on for a while, and I'll be sure to keep you all on the loop for that entire journey. Thank you so much for watching this week's devlog video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, as it really helps spread the message about the channel and this project. There is, however, an issue I'm starting to have that I'd like to mention. My hardware is outdated. You could probably see the bad frame rate issues in the video where there shouldn't be any. My computer is starting to struggle just to run Unity. This is worrying, as the project will only get bigger from here on out. It has issues with thermal throttling, and it struggles just to run the game in play mode in Unity. I can continue work on the project, but in the current state that my computer is, it's just going to keep taking longer and longer just to put simple fixes in place. As such, I want to know what you thought. Do you think it's worth me setting up a Patreon as a way to get an income? If I was to set up a Patreon, what rewards will I offer? Maybe allow for early access to the game, behind the scenes, special little rewards for patrons, being able to see a devlog video a few days or maybe even a week before it's released. Maybe see the Google Doc I'm reading right now that contains my script. Let me know in the comments if you think this is a good idea. I'm also going to try and use Twitter a lot more, so you can find a link to my Twitter in the description if you like to follow me there. Anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, see ya.